Hey, greetings. Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me. Father, give us eyes that see, ears that hear, and hearts that understand. So much of our theology is based on the doctrines and traditions of men and not on your word. Please, Father, teach us your ways. Help us to see and understand. Your words are life. Father, I want to be led by your words. Last week, we went through Leviticus 19. Oh my. You know, there's so much more that you can see when you begin to understand that there's only two kinds of men in Yehovah's kingdom. Yeah, I said men. The Ezra, they call him the native born, the one born in the land, and the Ger, oftentimes called the stranger. In some Bibles, even called the alien. Oh, we're so confused. He tells Israel what to do. Israel, the Ezra men, are the ones who teach their women and their children, their male and female servants, and the Ger who dwells with them, what Yehovah expects. But when Yehovah speaks through Moses, he's talking to Israel. Please don't think for a second that I'm talking about those people in the land of Israel that we're talking about right now. Modern day understandings, those are not the people I'm talking about. It's not about a landmass. It's about a holy, called out people. Remember, he didn't give us any commandments until when? After we left Egypt, crossed over into his jurisdictional authority. Then he began to show us new things. It happened to Abraham as well. He says in verse 2, speak to all the assembly. No, speak to all Israel's seeds assembly. All the assembly of Israel's seed. You can say it like that. He says, you shall be holy. For I, Yehovah, your Elohim, am holy. We saw this word holy as the word Kodesh. Kadesh. Kaf, Dalet, Shin. We talked about it a little bit last week. The Dalet and the Shin form the word dash. And it has to do with threshing. The dash does, the word dash. Kodesh then is talking about what Yehovah is doing as he slides that threshing platform back and forth, crushing the grain and separating the chaff from the seed. Yehovah wants a pure seed in his life, not a mixture. Oh my goodness, we're so much a mixture, those who call ourselves Israel, who aren't Israel, that we are putting a false image into the earth. You know what? That's going to require destruction in the end. Because you are not shining Yehovah's light the way it is supposed to be shined. We've got to leave the kingdom of our birth. Oh my goodness, you know what? It's hard. Did anybody say this was going to be easy? I left the kingdom of my birth in 2000. It cost me everything. My woman left me, stole my children away from me. My family practically disowned me. but I knew what Yehovah was calling me to was holiness. Pure seed. You can't serve two masters. He says, I am Yehovah, thy Elohim. Thy Elohim. He's talking to Israel. Whenever he says thy Elohim, that's what we're talking about. He's not anybody else's Elohim. He's talking to Israel when he says it. He says, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other Elohim. Elohim, lawmaker and judges, but me. Look what he said in 18. They're all tied together. Speak to Israel's seed and say to them, verse 2, I am Yehovah, thy Elohim, your Elohim in this case. Plural you, but he's still talking to the Ezra men. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwelt, you shall not do. And according to the doings of the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you, you shall not do. Do you hear that? You shall not do. We're still saying, God obeyed the laws of the land. No. What does he say? Nor shall you walk in their ordinances. You shall observe my statutes and keep my ordinances to walk in them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. This is nothing new. Last week then, we talked much about the Ezra and the Ger. Came up many times. It comes up every week, many times. We saw, I want to show you two places in particular. Verse 18, he says, you shall not take nor bear a grudge against your people's seed, is actually what it says. But you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Well, the question became, who is our neighbor? Well, first we got to understand, who is you? Who is the thee that we're talking about? Thou shalt not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against thy people's seed. Multi-generational men, spiritually born men is who we're talking about. But you shall love your neighbor. Remember, the word that they were using here was this word right here. This was the re'ah, as thyself. Well, obviously, the re'ah isn't thyself. But who is the thyself that we're talking about? Well, that's the people up here we're talking about called Israel's seed. The Ezra men, the spiritually born men who have the Ger who dwell with them. Well, now, when we compared 18, telling us to love the re'ah as ourself, now look at what it says in 34. The stranger, that's the Ger, who dwells among you. Now he's talking to the plural you, Israel's Ezra men, shall be to you as, well, here he is right here, as the Ezra. The Ezra here. Let's go to this. This is better way for you to see it. You shall, nope, that's not it. 1934. Here it is right here. The Ger who dwells among you shall be as you. Who's the you? He says it right here. The Ezra. And you shall love him as yourself. So who's the him? It's the re'ah that we were talking about in verse 18. For you were strangers, Gerim, in the land of Egypt. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. You know, there was a time where I was a ger in the land of Egypt for about 6 years until I realized how I could become an Ezra. That's how long it took me to figure it out. But for the last 10 years, I've been an Ezra, a spiritually born man. I am the thee. There's not many of us out there. I'm trying to inspire you to see what Yehovah has for you. The goal of our walk in this faith is to become Yehovah's Kasid. Oh my goodness, that's an amazing word. You ought to study it. Let's go to Psalms. I want to go to Psalms 50. Verse 5. Here it is right here. I'm going to read it to you on the left. Right. He says, gather to me my saints. It gets translated as saints all the time. That's how it's translated here in my New King James. Many translate it as saints. But that does not come close to giving us the understanding that we're supposed to have. I like to think of the Kasid as my kind. Here's the word. Kasid. It says properly kind, pious. It gets translated godly, good, holy, merciful, saint. No, this is Yehovah kind. Remember, Adam, Adam, the man, was created in Yehovah's image, according to his likeness. And after the fall, Adam had Seth in his own image and in his own likeness. We are all born sons of Belial, unrighteous men. And it is the Kasid who come back to Yehovah as Gentiles, join themselves to his people when they leave the kingdom of their birth, and become ger, who dwell with his people, and then at Passover become his Kasid, his Ezra men, his kind. Look what the rest of the verse says. Gather to me my kind, who cut covenant. Here it is, cut. Karat, cut. Covenant, barit. With me by slaughter. When do we do that? We do it at Passover. And that is what Exodus 12:48 is all about. That's why you've got to listen to my Born Again series and find out how a spirit man is spiritually born. Otherwise, you will remain in darkness. We have learned lies. We have learned the theology of men, the doctrines and traditions of men, and have failed to understand Yehovah's word. So who is the thee that's supposed to love the neighbor as himself? The thee is the Ezra. The neighbor is the ger who dwells with us. It's amazing when you begin to see it. And we saw last week how it all panned out in this chapter. It all fits together. We just don't want to see it because it requires much more of us than most of us will ever give. They don't want to leave Egypt. They love Egypt. The leeks, the onions, the garlic. The way that we live our life is too comfortable for us. We don't want to make the changes that are required. And most of us have women in our lives who won't let us, which makes it that much more harder. I know. I've experienced it firsthand. But either we leave the kingdom of our birth and become Yehovah's people, or as I said in my Facebook post today, we're screwed already. There's no hope. You've got to become Yehovah's people. How many people have died not knowing the truth? Do you think just because they think it in their heart and said it so many times that they're God's people, that they are God's people? Do you think saying it enough that it's going to make it true? Or are we going to make our life agree with his word? I choose the latter. You know, when I took Carissa into my life, she was working a job. And in a sense, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh means I'm working a job. And I don't want to work a job. I don't want to be a part of the world. We got to separate ourselves from the world. Well, it's starting to happen. Once again, I'm separating myself from the world. There was an interim there. We had to make changes. And it's happened. Well, there's much for us to learn. Today, we're going to talk about, really, you know, Yehovah. What was the last thing he said? Let's go back to Leviticus 18. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwelt, you shall not do. According to the doings of the land in Canaan, where I'm bringing you, you shall not do, nor shall you walk in their ordinances. Here's what I want you to see. You shall observe my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk in them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. 18 was all about these things. Sexual sins. Taking your father's woman, your mother. Your father's woman's not always your mother. She can be, but not always. Your father could have two women in his life. He could have dismissed your mother and taken another woman. But taking whoever woman he has is exposing your father's nakedness. We saw you don't take your sister. We don't take your son's daughter. We don't take your father's woman's daughter. We don't take a mother and her daughter. We don't take a daughter and her mother. We don't take a woman and her sister. We don't take another male. These are all things that he told us not to do. We don't take an animal. Nor shall a woman take an animal, he says. It's an abomination. Well, no, that was a perversion. The lying with a male as with a woman, that's an abomination. What was the word for abomination? We'll see that again today. Here it is. Yehovah, an abomination. Well, you know what? He gave us the statutes. What did he say? You shall obey my judgments and my statutes, my ordinances. Well, these are the ordinances. But now, today, we're going to hear the judgments. I gave you some of them when we went through this chapter. But now we're going through the chapter that talks about the judgments. You know, keeping Yehovah's ways. I don't really care for that word keeping. Guarding Yehovah's ways. Because some of his ways we don't do. but we guard all of them. Some of his ways we can't do, but we guard all of them. Now we're going to see the judgments. That's in Leviticus 20. Let's begin. Again, it says, then Yehovah spoke to Moses. He's always speaking to Moses. Moses is the one who's giving us his instructions per our request. Don't let him speak to us anymore, lest we die. Again, you shall say to Israel's seed. Listen to what he says. He's talking to Israel's seed. Whoever of Israel's seed or the strangers, the Garim, who dwell in Israel, here it is, say to Israel's seed, any man, oh, look at this. This says whoever. Whoever. Who's whoever? Could be a woman. That's what people do. They think they see the children of Israel. Perversion in the scriptures. There's no such thing as the children of Israel. It's Israel's seed. Spiritually born men, multi-generational spiritually born men at that. But look what it says here. Say to Israel's seed, any man. It says whoever. But really it says ish, ish. I like any man. Ish, ish. Any man of Israel's seed or the stranger who sojourns, gores in Israel, who gives his seed, which seed? The man's seed, whether he's Israel, Ezra, or the stranger, the Ger, who dwells with us, gives his seed to Moloch. Moloch. Who's Moloch? You know, there was child sacrifice in there. But you know what? We have child sacrifice today. We sacrifice our children to the Melachim of this world. Spelled the same way, Melech, Moloch. Mem Lamed Kaf, I believe is how it's spelled. Let me find out if that's correct. Yeah, Kaf. There it is right there. Mem Lamed Kaf. King, reign, king, kingdom. That's ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible. That's what this word means. Here, this is must be Strong's. Well, we can see if it's Strong's right away. Moloch. That is king, the chief deity of the Ammonites. King. We give our children to the king all the time. We encourage our children to go into the king's army. Not only our sons, but our daughters too. That's how far away we have fallen. We don't even understand what we're doing. We are so entrenched in the doctrines and traditions of men, we're blinded by the darkness. We call the darkness light, and the light darkness. Father, help us. We give our children to the king how? Maybe we're not child sacrificing our kids, but we're doing the same thing by giving them to the kings. How do we do it? We do it with a marriage license. Did you know when you take a marriage license that it's a three-way marriage? And now, by the authority invested in me by the states of North Carolina, I now pronounce you man and wife. They don't understand. They don't mention that there's a third party to the marriage. The state of North Carolina. That's why they can take your children from you, because you got the dang marriage license and made a covenant with them. You got the birth certificate, although that's not near as bad. We perish because of the covenants that we have made with the Moloch of the land, the kings of the land, the lawmakers and judges of the land, the Elohim of the land. It's killing us. The birth certificate, the marriage license, even the driver's license, especially the driver's license, is destroying our lives because it obligates us to serve the kingdoms of this world. I don't have those. Never get those things again. No social security number for Michael DDA. I got to live another way. It's not all bad. I'm not involved in the tax system either. Haven't been involved in the tax system since 2000. Do they complain? No. We have the duty to render to Caesar the things that are his. But what if we decide to render to Elohim, the lawmaker and judge, the creator of all things, all that we have? There's nothing left for Caesar. Don't use their numbers, and you're not involved in their kingdom. Get rid of those covenants. They're killing you. They're deadly. Well, let's continue with this verse because we haven't even finished the second verse yet. It says, say to Israel's seed, Ish, any man of Israel's seed, or the stranger who dwells with you, gores with you, sojourns with you. Is he talking to Egyptians? How about the Assyrians? How about the Babylonians? The U.S. citizens? The Canadians? No. He's talking to Israel's seed and the stranger who dwells with them. He says, any man of Israel's seed, or the stranger who sojourns in Israel, who gives from his seed to Moloch, shall surely be put to death. What does it say? The land's people. They're men. That's what it's talking about. The land's people. Here it is. The Haaretz. The land's people. Remember, these are us. Once we take the land, shall stone him with stones. I put, don't confuse the land with Israel's people. One dwells in Israel's land when he dwells with Israel on their land. Just because a land is called Israel, like it is back in the Middle East there, doesn't mean that that's the Israel land we're talking about. Really, true Israel doesn't have any land right now. Not land given to them on a permanent basis by Yehovah. But we will. We'll probably see that today. Let's move on. He goes on. I will set my face against that man, Ish. Not talking about a woman. Not talking about a Gentile. We're talking about a man of the Ezra or the Ger who dwells with us. That man. I will set my face against that man, and I will cut him off from his people. You don't want to be cut off from Yehovah's people. Although it's not an immediate death sentence, it's certainly an eternal death sentence. Because if you're not Yehovah's people, you're not going to have eternal life. I will set my face against that man, and I will cut him off from his people. because he has given his seed to Moloch, to defile my sanctuary, to profane my name. But we are defiling our sanctuary, his sanctuary. Now, this would be if we're in the land. By coming before him while serving other Elohim and giving our seed to them. That's what he's talking about. Verse 4. And if the people of the land's people, should in any way hide their eyes from the man, they see the man, Ha'ish. Not talking about the ladies. We're talking about the men. The book stops with them. They're the leaders of their family. No man in your life. You got other problems more important than that. You need a man in your life, ladies. Here it says, and if the land's people should in any way hide their eyes from the man, when he gives some of his descendants, his seed, to Moloch, and they do not kill him, we're supposed to kill him when that happens. He says that I will set my face against that man and against his family. And I will cut him off from his people. And all who, look what it says, all the whores who prostitute, all the whores with him, who go to whoring with Moloch. Oh, we got a lot of people whoring with Moloch right now. We don't know it. You're doing it, but you don't know you're doing it. You use things like Romans 13. Submit yourself to higher authorities. You are so lost. I wrote articles about that. Do a search on my site for that chapter. We've learned lies. It's again calling evil good and good evil. Lightness, dark, and dark lightness. He goes on. Verse 6. And the person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person. And I will cut him off from his people. You know what? We're talking about men again. It says person, but we're talking about men. Let me see if I can find this. I just want to check this out. It probably does say nefesh here. It does say souls. But we're still talking about men. Not talking about ladies. This is not about ladies. It's never about ladies. Yeah, your woman takes off and goes to mediums. She might be destroyed, but it's probably going to be you that's going to put her out on her keister, cut her off from her people. Here's the words that they're using. What was the words they had here? Mediums and familiar spirits. Necromancers. Here's another one. Conjurers. Knowing ones. Who are these kinds of people? You know, Saul had, I think I mentioned this last week actually. Saul had the Philistines coming against him, and he was wondering what it is that he was supposed to do. He talked to the high priest, who sought the Urim and the Tumim, but didn't get an answer. He went to the prophets, but he didn't get an answer from Yehovah, because he was a rebellious man. Wanted to do his own things. So what was it that he did? He did this. He went and sought this person right here. Here's the familiar spirits. See this word right here? Yiddaoni. Yiddaoni. A conjurer. People who say they know things. The medium channels the dead. Saul had the witch of Endor channel Samuel. Listen to what this says in 1 Samuel 28, 7 through 8. It says, Then Saul said to his servants, Find me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, In fact, there is a woman who that hath a familiar spirit. Here it is right here. Same word. Yiddaoni. At Endor. So Saul disguised himself, put on his clothes, and he went. 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, Please conduct a seance for me, and bring up for me one that I shall name. Here is the king of Israel seeking a conjurer, a knowing one, someone to do a seance for him. How much in your face can Saul be? Do we have familiar spirits? You know, one of the things that they said here for this particular word, let me see if I can find it. The pictograph dalet this is where this word comes from. Yiddaoni. Dalet. The pictograph dalet is the picture of a door. The an is a picture of an eye. Through the eyes, one experiences his world and learns from it. Combined, these pictures mean the door of the eye. The eye is the window of a man's very being. Experience is gained through visual or observation. Knowledge is achieved through these experiences. I'm looking for the word that has to do with prognosticator, is kind of what I was thinking of. A person who sees the signs of the time and tells you how to orient your life so that this is what they do in politics all the time. They call it polling. They do the polls, and however the polls go, then they kind of orient their speech to satisfy those polls and can take care of the greatest number. This is how most of us live. It's a very pragmatic lifestyle instead of doing it the way Yehovah tells us to do it, which is uncomfortable much of the time, isn't it? But it's the firm foundation that we're building our life on. Listening to these people instead of our Elohim, it's what gets us in trouble. This is what he's talking about in this verse. We got to follow Yehovah only. Men. Women, follow your men. Learn your created purpose. Men, learn to follow only Yehovah. Leave the kingdom of your birth. You know what? It's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. I started in 1999, and I probably wasn't out of the kingdom of my birth until 2000. Even longer, really, because I still had a marriage license. My woman didn't want to annul that. I could have affirmed the marriage and annulled the license. That's what I wanted to do. But no. She loved the world. You can't love the world. It's going to get you killed. In the New Testament, they call it the kingdom. It's the system. It's the systems that we live in that's killing us. It's the systems that are binding us to the lawmakers and judges of this world, and we don't even know it. Let's move on. The person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. Again, being cut off from Yehovah's people, whether you're an Ezra or a Ger, is a death sentence. Maybe not an immediate death sentence, but ultimately it's an eternal death sentence. You don't want to get cut off from Yehovah's people. Being part of Yehovah's people is what it's all about. So he says, consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I, not the mediums, not the other Elohim, Yehovah is holy. Make yourselves holy. I'm going to read this again. We read it last week. I talked about it a little bit today. Consecrate yourselves. Here's the word we're talking about, kodesh. Here it is right here, kodesh. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, kodesh, kodeshim. Oh, that's so cool. Kodeshim, not kodesh, kodeshim. You know what? I think this is the qualitative plural, the plural of grandeur that we're talking about. Just like Elohim. Remember, Elohim can be all the Elohim, all the lawmakers and judges of the world. But when we're talking about the Elohim, we're talking about the creator of all things, the plural of grandeur, or the qualitative plural. I think this is the qualitative plural right here. First time we're using it as a verb. The second time we're using it as a noun. But the second time is the plural of grandeur, the qualitative plural. That's an amazing thing right there, just to even understand that. What does the qualitative plural, when we're talking about kodeshim, mean? I think it's talking about a spiritual holiness. It certainly is a physical holiness as well, but it's about his kind. His chesed, practicing holiness, kodeshim. The Hebrew word translated as holy is kodesh. Kadosh, I guess I should say. Kaf dalet shin. The ancient Hebrew ideograph gives us some great understanding as to the meaning of this word. The letter kaf, or the letter kaf, is a picture of the back of the head and conveys the idea of being behind. The dalet is the picture of a door and conveys the idea of opening and closing, swinging back and forth. The letter shin is a picture of teeth, conveys the idea of eating, biting, crushing. The last two letters, the dalet and the shin, is the word for threshing, dash. It's the word dash we talked about it a minute ago. In these two ideographs, dalet shin, we see a heavy sled that is being pulled back and forth over the grain to crush it in order to separate the chaff from the seed. When we add the letter kaf to the picture, it conveys the idea of pure seed, what comes after the threshing, which is left behind after the threshing and winnowing is complete. So the word kadosh, kadosh, can be understood as referring to the state of being after the chaff has been removed. In other words, the word holy implies a state of being without mixture. We aren't mixed with the chaff. We're a separate people, left one kingdom, joined himself to another, and now are making ourselves into his kind. Israel is called to be without mixture, just as Yehovah is without mixture. It's so beautiful. He says, Leviticus 11, for I am Yehovah, your Elohim. You shall therefore consecrate yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creeping things that creep on the earth. For I am Yehovah, who brings you up out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of the United States, out of the citizenry of the Canadians, to be your lawmaker and judge. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. Leviticus 19, the last chapter we did last week. Speak to all the assembly of Israel's seed, and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Yehovah, your Elohim, am holy. Verse 8. He says, and you shall guard. Here's the word that they're using right here. You shall guard. The word is this one right here. Shamar. Hedge. That is guard, protect, attend, protect. I like that. Guard my statutes and do them. I am Yehovah, who set you apart. Are you set apart? Or are you just part of everybody else? The answer is an eternal one. Don't just say it. Make it so, grasshopper. I am Yehovah, who sets you apart. Here's the word they're looking at right here. Kodesh, again. Sets you apart. We have sanctifies you. Which means more? Sanctifies you, religious word sanctifies, or sets you apart. Makes you separate from the world. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you came, you shall not do. Set you apart. 9. Here it is again. I gotta mark this. This tells me there's a note. That's my signal. It's again, any man. For everyone. It says everyone. Is it everyone? Would a woman be an everyone? No, it says man, man. For everyone. Any man who curses. Here's the word for cursing right now. Kalal. Makes light. Trifles. Makes light. I like that. Shall make light. For any man who makes light of his father and his mother shall surely be put to death. He has cursed his father and his mother. He has made light of his father and his mother. Does that mean that we're going to do everything that our father and mother do, especially as an adult? Does it mean we're going to do everything that our father and mother do, especially if we're married to Gentile fathers and mothers? They didn't follow us when we left. No, but we're still going to take what they have to say with a heavy heart. Help them. Guide them, if you can, into new lights. You know, my folks followed me into transcendental meditation. When I became a Christian, they followed me there. But when I became Israel's seed, they wanted no part of it. They were happy with the doctrines and traditions of men. I did what I could. Yeah, both, this is Ancient Hebrew Lexicon in the Bible, both of them use the word light. It says it'd be swift or cursed. Something that is lightweight, lightweight or stature. Again, we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about man of Israel or the Ger who dwells with them. Not talking about the Gentiles. Not talking about the Egyptians. Let's get it right. Let's develop better understandings so that we can make our life better. Verse 10. It says, my verse says, the man. Okay, it doesn't say the man. It says, and a man. And a man. Here it is right here. Ish. Ish. We're still talking about men. We're not talking about ladies. This is not a generic man. I think ladies might try to make themselves the man. Oh, they mean human. No, they don't. They mean man. And a man who commits adultery with another man's woman. Well, that even makes it more clear, doesn't it? He breaks covenant with his friend's woman. Here's his friends. Oh, may even be the Ger. His friend's woman. The adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. Now, this is where we're getting into the judgments that we talked about the week before. Not last week, but the week before that. Leviticus 18. Shall surely be put to death. But you know what? When I look at any of these, taking another man's woman, I don't care if it's your father's woman, your brother's woman, your uncle's woman, your son's woman. You're taking another man's woman. That's adultery. Well, how does that change? You shall not commit adultery. I guess I don't see the variance in that. Why is it not all adultery? And why are the penalties different sometimes? Apparently. Maybe they're not. Maybe we're just looking at these things in a way that we shouldn't have. I'll try to explain it as we go further. Here's what Deuteronomy 22 says. If a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband. Well, this is a woman married to his neighbor's friend. With a man's woman. If a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, ba'aled to a man, really is what it's saying, then both of them shall die. The man who lay with the woman and the woman. So you shall put away the evil from Israel. Here's Leviticus 20. Oh, that is this verse. The man who commits adultery with another man's woman, he who commits adultery with his neighbor's woman, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. Remember, these are the judgments. Makes sense. You're supposed to die. How did they kill him? Probably stoned him. I think for the most part, they were stoned. Sometimes they're hung. Sometimes they're burned. Burned alive. Wow. We'll see that in a minute. And the man, same word. Look at, I want you to see something. All these, it says the man, if a 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 man. Look at this. Let's go here. I want you to see they all start exactly the same way. I highlighted them for you so you could see it better. Here it is. It says, and ish ashar. It's, and a man who, ish ashar. It's va'ish ashar. There it is. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 20, 21. These are all exactly the same words. Let's go back. And a man, I'm reading on the right, who lies with his father's woman, has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Their blood shall be upon them, is what it says. It's really not what it says. Here's what it actually says. It's their blood shall. It's like they add all these extra words. It says with their blood, perversion with their blood. It seems like what they're saying. All those other words are just simply added words. I'm surprised I didn't change that one. Their blood shall be upon them. I see I got it there. I started finding it. So really all of these are, in a sense, the same thing going on. Their blood. Here, let's take a look at one just so you can see it. It is confusion. It is confusion. They have both wrought perversion. But then it says they have both wrought. So this is the word wrought right here. Wrought, make, do. They have made a perversion, confusion. Tabal, that's the confusion, the perversion. There it is right here. Tabal. And then it says this. This is dumb. Dumb. Then it's there, okay? This says of them, and this says there for both of the people. There. Their blood. That's what it says. Their blood. Their blood. Their blood shall be upon them. How do they get that? Maybe it's there. It seems like it's going to be on them. But look at this. In this one that we're running right now, it says they shall surely be put to death. Their blood. Their blood. Put to death their blood. But here in verse 12, it says they have committed perversion, their blood. It doesn't say they shall be put to death. Is that inferred? It must be perverted. They're doing the same thing. The man who lies with his father's wife, verse 11, father's woman, has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be their blood. Verse 12. If a man lies with his daughter-in-law, that's his son's woman. Both of them shall surely be put to death. They have committed, and there it says, put to death, they have committed perversion, their blood. Have they committed perversion with their blood? Is it because the son's is a seed of the father, and now the son's receptacle, his woman, the father's using? Is that what we're talking about? I don't know. Father, I want to know more. I don't think that's it, but it might. Yeah, and the man who lies with his father's woman. Okay, no, I got to go down here, 12. And the man who lies with his daughter-in-law, a death they shall both die. A death they shall both die. It's moot, moot. Moot, moot. A death they shall both die. Moot, moot. Remember, moot is the word for die. Here, let me just move this down here. Here, if I do this. Here you can see moot. There, root, die. Causatively, to kill. Moot, moot. Is that a double death? Might be a double death, because if you get wiped out from Israel, you are not going to be part of the kingdom anymore, are you? Maybe it's a double death. Moot, moot. A death they shall die. A double death. Maybe. I think a death they shall die is maybe a way of saying it. This one says a death they shall both die. They have wrought perversion with their blood, in their blood, by their blood. Let's continue. 13. And a man. And a man who? Same thing again. And a man who lies with a male, a zakar. Remember, the nekabah is the female. An animal is a female animal, whether human or an animal. This happens to be a zakar. A man who lies with a zakar, as he lies with a woman. I wonder if that word is nekabah. Let's find out, just out of curiosity. As he lies with no, it says isha. As he lies with a woman. He says, an abomination they do. Death they shall die in their blood. Death they shall die in their blood. Do you hear? This is the answer to the statutes that we learned in 18. Don't take a woman and her daughter. Don't take a woman and her sister. Don't take your mother's or your aunt, which we said is exactly what Moses' dad did. We've got to work hard to figure how this all fits together. We need more knowledge. We need more understanding. We need more light. Comes little by little, doesn't it? Sometimes precious little at a time. I'm giving you all I can find. Well, let's go back. 13, 14. Again, same start. And a man who takes. Here it is. Takes. This is lakak. Lakak. A different form of it because it's got the yod in front of it. It's he takes. The man, he takes. So they left the lamed off. The man who takes a woman and her mother. Then the other thing is that a woman and her daughter. Same difference, no diff. They shall be burned with fire. There it is. They shall be burned with fire. They all shall be burned with fire, both he and they, that there may be no wickedness among you. Y'all, Israel. You know, when you see somebody burned in the fire, you think, oh, I ain't going to do that. Makes a difference, doesn't it? Well, that's takes. They translated it as what? Look what it says. Varies. It's takes. Lakak. Let's keep that in mind because we're going to see it in a moment. 15. And a man who mates with an animal shall surely be put to death, and you shall kill the animal. And a woman, this is the next verse, it doesn't say if, it says and. A woman who approaches any animal and mates with it, you shall kill the woman and the animal. Death, they shall die in their blood. Death, they shall die. 17. 17. And a man who, here it is. We saw this before. This is the same word. Takes. How come they translate it as takes here and marries there? Well, a man can't marry his sister. He can take her, though. I hate that discretionary translation. It confuses us. You can't see the truth. This is why you got to look at the Hebrew. If a man takes his sister, what are we talking about? We're not talking about marries. We're talking about taking sexual intercourse. If a man takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, and sees, this is the word ra'ah, and sees her nakedness, that's her nudity, erva, and she sees his nakedness, it is a wicked thing. And they shall be cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. His perversity he shall carry. So he's going to get cut off from his people. I guess it wasn't adultery, was it? It was, what do they call it? Oh, avan, perversity, evil. His evil he shall carry. Sounds like they're not getting killed, but his sister's not a virgin anymore. That's going to be a problem. Oh, this is his sister. A stepsister is okay. Could marry a stepsister. Could take a stepsister. Wouldn't be a problem. But not a sister. His father takes another woman. That woman has a child. Well, actually, how does that go? If a man takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter. No, they're still talking about his parents' sons or daughters. So no, but a stepwoman, you could take that daughter. That would be permissible. Okay, 18. All right, we're making our way through here. Again, and a man who lies with a woman in her sickness and uncovers her nakedness. Now, sickness. It's actually her deva. There's the word right there, deva. Not her sickness, her deva. She's in her menses. And uncovers her nakedness. He has exposed her flow, and she has uncovered the flow of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. Here they're being cut off from their people. Now, this is done on purpose. Here, look at this. If any man lies with her at all, so that her impurity, her deva, is on him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. This is if your woman, while you're having intercourse, starts her period. Oh no! Her deva is on me! There's a remedy for that. That wasn't done on purpose. This is done on purpose. But this is accidental. If it happens on purpose, it is much more serious, which is what we just read about. You're going to be cut off from the people. This is if it is an accident, if it is accidental. If it happens on purpose, I got the same thing in here twice. All right, dava, sickness, menstruation. That was 18, we're on 19. This happens to be thy father's sister. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, nor your father's sister, for that would uncover his near of kin. And again, his near of kin would be his father or her father. They shall bear their guilt. Guilt. Their asham probably is the word there. No, again, evil. Look at that. They shall bear their, let's just make it evil. They shall bear their evil. That's what we're talking about. Van. Punishments. Perversity. Evil. 20. Again. And a man who lies with his uncle's woman. He has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin. They both shall die childless. What? What? What does that mean? They both shall die childless? Does that mean that they're going to be on their own? He gets to take her? What does that mean? Let's read it again. If a man lies with his uncle's woman, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. How's that not another man's woman? They shall bear their sin. Bear their sin? How come they're not being killed outright? They both shall die childless. Does that mean he's going to not knock out, kill any progeny that are going to come from this relationship? How come they're not being killed outright? If a man takes another man's woman, they both die. What's up with that? I want to know more. But how is this not adultery? Why are they not both killed? Does this mean that the wicked man's seed will be destroyed from the earth? Well, how about him? You kill him, you get rid of his seed. The next verse is just exactly the same situation. I don't get it. And a man who does exactly the same thing. Except I didn't make it that way, did I? And the man, and here it goes, and man who, W-H-O, takes his brother's woman. It is an unclean thing. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They both shall be childless. What? How come they're not being killed? Does this mean that the wicked man's seed will be destroyed from the earth? Maybe. You know, when we did 18, I think I was a little bit confused with this Levirate marriage when we were talking about that, because if you have a brother who takes a woman, but your brother dies before the seed is born, the male seed, the heir is born, then you're obligated to take that woman. But taking the woman before her man dies, that's what this is about. So Levirate marriage doesn't fit into it at all. They should be killed. You took another man's woman. You took your brother's woman. How is that not committing adultery? They both shall be childless. I don't get it. I don't have all the answers. I just can see what it says in the Hebrew. 22. We're moving on. He says, you, this is y'all, shall keep guard. Here. I'm sure it's guard. You shall therefore guard all my statutes and all my judgments, and do them, that the land where I bring you, he's bringing Israel's seed to the land. The Ger's coming with them. The Ger's going to probably get land when they become Ezra. But for right now, they are parts of the Ezra's land. They dwell with them. That the land where I bring you to dwell, to Gor, therein shall not vomit you out. Hear that? The land is going to vomit the wicked people out of the land. This is why we're doing it. This is why we become Yehovah's people, so we don't get vomited out of the land. If you're not Yehovah's people, you're going to get vomited out of the land. No matter if you think you're Yehovah's people or not. You got to be his people. How can I make you understand what I'm showing you here? We've seen it every week. Constantly we see this. We've talked about this before. But remember, we talk about the rapture, this business about the rapture, all this goofiness we have. The righteous are being snapped up from the world and to heaven. Baloney. That's ridiculous. What does Yehovah say happens to the wicked? It says they get vomited out of the land. Look at this. The wicked are removed from the earth, but the righteous remain on it. Here's just two. I could show you lots, but here's two. For the upright will dwell in the land, and the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the earth, vomited out of the land. And the unfaithful will be uprooted from it. Here's another one. Psalms 10:30. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not inhabit the earth. Who are the righteous? The Ezra. You could argue the Ger, but the Ger only have a year. They got to turn into Ezra. Otherwise, they get kicked out of the land. It's about Yehovah's Kasid. Those who have cut covenant with him by slaughter. Those are his kind. Those are the ones who inherit the earth. Kingdom's seed. Elohim's son, Israel. Let my son go, that he may serve me. 23. And you shall not walk in the statutes of the nations. Gosh, you guys, do you hear what he's saying here? What part of you shall not walk in the statutes of the nations do we not understand? We could say the statutes of the Gentiles, which I'm casting out before you. For they commit all these things, and therefore I abhor them. We've seen it before. Look at the next verse. I've got it right here, but I'm reading it right here. But I have said to you, you shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who separated you from the peoples, made you pure seed, holy as he is holy. 18, we've read it numerous times today. according to the doings of the land of Egypt. Here's the one I always like. Then Haman, this is in Esther. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. Their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Well, there it is right there. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. That's how they're going to feel about us in the end. I'm talking about Israel. Not talking about the Gentiles. The Gentiles are already keeping the king's laws. 24. But I have said to you, you shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who separated you from the peoples, from the Amim, the peoples of this world, called out, a holy people, a royal priesthood. What he calls his segula, his special treasure. "25. You shall therefore distinguish between clean animals and unclean, between unclean birds and clean. And you shall not make yourselves abominable by beast, or by bird, or by any kind of living thing that creeps on the ground, which I separated from you as unclean." This is going all the way back to Leviticus 11. "And you shall be holy to me, for I, Yehovah, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples," separated us from the peoples, "that you should be mine." Again, who is he talking to? He's not talking to the Christians. He's not. You're fooling yourselves if you think he is. He's talking about the men who left the kingdom of their birth and joined themselves to his called out people, and then became his kind, his Kassid, his Ezra men, Israel. That's who he's talking to. Well, here's a few more verses. Leviticus 11:44 and 45. "For I am Yehovah your Elohim. You shall therefore consecrate yourselves, Kodesh yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creeping thing that creeps on the earth. For I am Yehovah, who brings you up out of the land of Egypt," brought us up out of the land of Egypt, "to be your Elohim." We don't have any other Elohim. I am Yehovah, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other Elohim existing before my face. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. "Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am Yehovah, your Elohim." Remember, code words. Talking about the Ezra men, Yehovah, their Elohim. "And you shall keep my statutes and perform them. And I am Yehovah, who sanctifies you. Speak to the assembly of Israel's seed, and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Yehovah, your Elohim, am holy." You can't be the peoples and be separated from the peoples. No, it doesn't work like that. Well, now it's kind of like, that was kind of like the conclusion, but now he goes back to this. "A man or a woman who is a medium or has a familiar spirits," this is what the witch of Endor had, "shall surely be put to death." Can't have somebody like that living in your land. Get rid of them. "They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall..." Their blood. That's probably what it says. Their blood. Their blood. I don't know why they didn't cry out upon them. It doesn't say upon them. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. 1:34. We went an hour and a half. I'm really not prepared to go into 21. I didn't study that at all this week. I maybe looked at the first 4 or 5 verses. So we're going to cover that next week. I think you'll find it interesting. We're going to talk about priests next week. Up until now, we've been talking about a lot of Israel's seed. Moses is talking to Israel's seed. Next week, it's going to be Yehovah spoke to Moses, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron. It's going to talk about who they can marry, how they mourn, a lot of different things. Yeah, well, I think you'll find it an interesting chapter. All right, well, thank you for joining me this week. Father, please work in our lives. Give us eyes that see. Don't let us forget what we're learning. We've got to become those Ezra men. We've got to become a woman of worth. Please, Father, help us. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, you guys. We'll see you again next week. Bye now.